With tensions rising between the global powers, President Joe Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping are expected to hold a virtual meeting before year's end, according to the White House. The agreement in principle for the talks was disclosed after White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan and senior Chinese foreign policy advisor Yang Jiechi met for 6 hours in Zurich. Since becoming president, Biden has had 2 phone conversations with Xi Jinping. In particular, the second phone call lasted 90 minutes, took place last month. According to Shi Jinping, a U.S. expert at Beijing's Renmin University, the Zurich talks represented a partial rebound in the deeply strained ties. He said it made sense that the U.S. side wanted to halt the escalation of tensions with China, while maintaining pressure, given scrutiny of the Biden administration following the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. It is positive to stop escalating the situation, but the meeting should not be overrated, because it is not a de-escalation but a partial thawing. At best, especially considering the intensifying situation over the Taiwan Strait, Shi said. Conflicts in the strait are at a 40-year high, Taiwan's defense chief Chiu Guojing said. Within the first 4 days of October, hundreds of Chinese warplanes infiltrated and threatened the self-governing island. China's military has deployed its new J-16D fighter jet designed for electronic warfare to an eastern airbase near Taiwan, according to satellite imagery and a People's Liberation Army source. This type of fighter specializes in conducting electronic suppression operations, jamming or disabling enemy air defense systems. It can also control anti-radar missiles. The move is particularly notable, as Beijing has recently stepped up military exercises to raise its readiness to take over the island. With such a deliberately provocative act that is difficult to accept, a U.S. official said that the meeting between the 2 leaders of the U.S. and China is not a sign that bilateral relations will warm up in the near future. We are trying to strike a balance between the U.S. and China, where the 2 countries can compete fiercely but still make sure it happens responsibly, the official said. It can be seen that the U.S.-China relationship is facing an important turning point, so the actions of the leaders must be carefully calculated to avoid escalation of military clashes. However, the expert warned that the level of de-escalation and the goodwill in dialogue between the U.S. and China in the near future will depend a lot on the initiative of the 2 sides, most of which is from Beijing. General Manoj Mukund Naravan, India's army chief, said Chinese troops are increasing in considerable numbers, which has triggered a matching deployment by New Delhi, according to an AFP report. He told reporters the trend is a concern while visiting Ladakh region, home to the Galwan Valley, on Saturday, October 2nd. In response, India also immediately deployed high-altitude combat troops to counterbalance its neighbor. The US and India are like-minded partners, and the 2 are ready to compete vigorously with China, US Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman said, cautioning economic coercion could hamper efforts to build a strong international economy, a message seemingly aimed at Beijing. Taiwan's Air Force published a video on Saturday, October 2nd, amid rising tensions with neighbor China. The video shows fighter jets taking off and Air Force personnel going through drills. Some heavy artillery is also shown off. Taiwanese residents on Wednesday, October 6, were mostly skeptical about recent comments by Taiwan's defense minister in which he claimed that China will be capable of mounting a full-scale invasion of the democratic island by 2025. Service industry worker Azorn Wang, 27, said she believed that Defense Minister Chiu Guojing's comments were unrealistic, and that China would not actually attack. Taiwan's military has publicly confirmed for the first time the existence of the Yunfeng, Cloud Peak, medium-range surface-to-surface missile, which has been under development since the 1990s. Defense Minister Chiu Guojing mentioned the missile during a joint hearing of the Legislative Yuan's Foreign Affairs and National Defense Committee and Finance Committee on a proposed special budget of 240 billion new Taiwan dollars to boost Taiwan's missile arsenal. Speaking to the senators at the presidential office, Xi thanked France for its concern about the situation in the Taiwan Strait and support for its international participation. In recent days, tensions between the 2 sides of the Taiwan Strait have suddenly increased, when China sent hundreds of fighter jets to infiltrate and threaten the island. Taiwan's leader Tsai Ing-wen also boldly declared that they will never surrender to violence and tyranny. According to Ms. McFarland, former deputy U.S. National Security Advisor under President Donald Trump, China only threatened, but not enough power to invade the island. Talking on a program of Newsmax TV, Ms. McFarland said, China is putting pressure on the U.S. and other countries in Asia, forcing them to be distracted. China plans to do with Taiwan the same it did with Hong Kong. The intention is to make Taiwan slowly submit to threats and temptations. China does not have the capacity to unify the island purely by military force at this time. In recent days, China has sent more than 150 fighter jets into Taiwan's air defense identification zone. Ms. McFarland said, through this move, they want to show Taiwan that the U.S. will not be willing to protect its small ally. China has always used the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan to discredit Washington. Despite the threats, Taiwan's leader Tsai Ing-wen remains adamant. She recently affirmed that the island's defense forces will fight to the last breath and never give up. She called for the help of the international community, stressing that if Taiwan fell into China's hands, it would be a disaster for all of humanity. At that time, democracy had lost to dictatorship, civilization had lost to barbarians, and law had lost to tyranny. No country in the world will be quiet peace before China's huge ambitions. Iran has been an observer of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, for 13 years, and may soon become an official member in the near future. According to experts sharing in the Middle East perspective, the country should stay away from China and not join the SCO. If Iran want to be rich and prosperous, cooperate with the West. On September 17, in the Tajik capital Dushanbe, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, admitted Iran after 13 years of waiting, but Tehran has to wait a little longer, 3 years, before when fully qualified as an official member. According to experts, how long this process takes depends on the attitude of Russia and China. Finally, whatever benefits SCO membership might bring to Iran is far from a reality. Iran sees joining the SCO as proof that Western isolationist policies have failed. Some hardliners also believe that, for economic recovery, Iran does not need to look to the West, and does not need to make concessions to revive the 2015 nuclear deal. According to analysts in the journal Middle East Perspective, this thinking is very naive. The article cited, the key members of the SCO are China, India and Pakistan are all enemies of each other. Russia and China are potential rivals. Relations between Central Asian countries are also often tense. This makes security cooperation in the SCO just empty commitments. About economy, Russia, Uzbekistan, and Kazakhstan see Iran as a competitor in the energy sector. Iran also does not have what it needs: industrial goods, technology and capital. The quality of Iranian goods is also lower than competitors. To improve this, Iran needs money, technology, and well management. Being a member of the SCO does not give Iran any of the above. There are also political barriers. Central Asia, along with Azerbaijan, has no sympathy for Iran. They do not believe in the ideology of the Islamic Revolution. They are sensitive to the word revolution. After much turmoil, they don't want any more revolution. Iran's accession to the SCO does not help change this stereotype. After the Taliban take power in Kabul, Afghanistan will likely abandon the port of Chabahar in favor of the Pakistani port of Gwadar. Until now, Iran lacks a modern network of roads, railways, and seaports. This reduces the attractiveness of a transit place. To upgrade its infrastructure, Iran needs money, something SCO members won't provide. This will only happen if the US lifts economic sanctions. Experts conclude